If you enjoyed this video, then I'd really appreciate it if you go ahead and hit the like button. And if you really enjoyed this video and you want to see more, then join the 6-1 Clicks by clicking the subscribe button and don't miss a single episode of Model Behavior. Hello Marvelous Legends. So, Iron Man 3. This review is going to be very, very different because when I rewatched this, I really enjoyed it. It was a good time, which is funny because in 2013, I hated this movie. The problem with Shane Black movies, which I still feel to this day, even though my opinion of Iron Man 3 has changed, is that Shane Black will always make a Shane Black movie. So if he's making something like The Nice Guys or Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, excellent. But the problem is, if you try and give him a franchise that's already established, like an Iron Man or, God help us, Predator, he will make a Shane Black movie out of it, and that doesn't always work. It certainly didn't work for Predator. I don't think I'm going to change my opinion about that in 7 years' time. But for Iron Man, yeah, I was disappointed because I was like, I wanted a Marvel movie and I got a Shane Black movie, and I really disliked that. But now that I'm 7 years removed and I know sort of where the Marvel Universe goes, I enjoy this stopgap in Shane Blackville. Now, this is going to be a very different review because I remembered a conversation I had immediately after watching this on Facebook with a friend of mine who's way smarter than I am about films. And I gotta say, Steve, 7 years ago, you were right. Pretty much all your points were correct. I still stand that there are huge plot holes and narrative stupid things that make no sense. But as far as the actual film is concerned, the way it's told, the dialogue, the banter, it's really well done. So I've done a complete 180 on this movie. So in order to have a fun little way of showing this, I've actually recreated our Facebook conversation via the medium of video. So I present to you folks watching this a trip back in time to 2013 and the Facebook thread conversation that I had with my buddy about Iron Man 3. Okay, specific concerns issues. Go. Alright, these complaints range from genuine crimes against filmmaking to nitpicky gripes. In fairness, I will happily say that I like Shane Black and his direction was perfectly good, if not sometimes great. The acting was all of a decent quality and the film looked and sounded lovely. It's more what happened in the film and how it was done. But I won't elaborate too much on any one point or we'll be here forever. First off, it clearly feels like there are scenes missing. I noticed this instantly upon viewing. A character will be somewhere and then instantly they're elsewhere and you're like, hang on, did we just... Okay, I guess we're here now. I didn't notice that one. For me it seemed like a well-edited movie. I don't know. Got an example? I don't need to see a character drive to a store to get a drink if he says, I'm going for a drink, and the next scene is him a few hours later having a drink. Okay, I can't think of an exact example here, but there were at least 3 edits I found jarring, and I'm such a geek that when I watch this movie next, I will take notes and recount them to you. I know we don't need to see everything, but some moments just felt like we missed a scene. Don Cheadle is a very good actor, but he's not an action hero. He looks and sounds like an accountant. He was like this in Iron Man 2, wasn't he? And Terrence Howard was a bit of a dweeb in Iron Man 1. So for me, again, I don't see it as a problem because the character is, for all his military training, hardly a badass in movie canon. The movie universe has established him as a well-meaning, laconic friend of Tony. So is it a problem with this film in that because he's now, whatever, Iron Patriot or something, he should be a bit more of a badass action hero? Or was it Jon Favreau's casting in Iron Man 2? If we're being mean, here's a gain with Terrence Howard in Iron Man 1. I totally agree that was a mistake that was made back in Iron Man 1 and then repeated in Iron Man 2. Just poor actor selection. Granted, that's more of a nerd gripe that he isn't anything like the comic book counterpart. Tony is suffering from almost crippling PTSD until a kid tells him to get over it. Interesting. I honestly can't remember now after the event the exact moment he gets over it, or at least isn't crippled by PTSD at the very mention of New York. I certainly didn't sit there and have a similar reaction, and like you, when the treacle comes I find it too sickly. I love the PTSD angle following on from the Avengers and that it becomes debilitating. The PTSD angle was great, I agree. It's just that when the kid says to him over the phone while he's having a panic attack, "You're a mechanic, so build something," he's like, "Oh, okay," and that's the end of that. A terrorist steals the Iron Patriot armor and instantly knows how to pilot it like a pro, even though it took Tony months to figure it out himself. So, are we willing to suspend disbelief that Extremis gives its users incredible powers? And if so, given that the terrorist is Eric Savin, aka Coldblood, a highly trained mercenary, highly trained like, say, Mr. Accountant, who is a military-trained operative, which Tony is not. Hence, months of trying to learn how to fly. Also, in Iron Man 2, didn't Rhodes just turn up and fight Stark and take the suit? So he learned pretty quickly too. I might be wrong, I didn't care for Iron Man 2. Again, this is kind of a mistake made in Iron Man 2 as well, since I was sitting there at the time saying, how the hell does Rhodey know how to fly that? In Iron Man 2, at least you could assume maybe Tony taught his best buddy how to fly it should he ever need to. In Iron Man 3, they just took lazy writing from 2 and exploited it. Okay, this is one that really got me. The US government let War Machine onto Air Force One without looking under his mask, asking for ID, or even hearing him speak? Come on! I get it, but this is nitpicky and can be applied to one of several thousand films. Should the character, in this case the president, not have enough trust or even sheer hubris to assume Rhodes would be in there? This is the same individual whose own vice president was plotting against him. He's trusting. Now I agree, internet snark on here, that in this age of hypersecurity, someone should have just went, clang clang, hello, Mr. Rhodes? But again, suspension of disbelief. The fact that he got on the plane and made it to 40,000 feet just makes the action scene to come more exhilarating. I can give that over a scene set in Passport Control. Nitpicky but true, it's lazy writing just to conveniently set up an action scene. I like the Mandarin reveal, but something like that should lead to an even more awesome puppet master being revealed. Not, actually, rather than being the lackey, Guy Pearce is actually the boss! Oh, okay, so the big reveal is that it's just a different corporate pecking order. Okay, I get that. He'll never be cool or an awesome bad guy. For me, it had to happen because the film is about Tony's hubris and past decisions catching up with him. And so the nerdy guy who was humiliated and made to feel like a plum becomes the top dog and the puppet master. As a journey and counterpoint to Tony, it seems plausible. Now, was it satisfying to have him as the big bad? I'll agree with you here. I thought it was slightly vanilla. But to play devil's advocate, just chucking in an unseen character here would have been underwhelming as they have no relationship, no friction. Like the Russian guy in Iron Man 2. Terrible. I totally agree with your points. I think we're both right on this one. At the start of the movie, Tony Stark has been awake for 72 hours and he looks like he just got out of a GQ cover shoot. So what, more crease lines? Greasy hair? I'll give you that, but it doesn't actually detract from the film one bit for me. It's a comic book film, it's not Wong Kar-wai. Wong Kar-wai? You know I don't speak Spanish. In English, please. Okay. After barely sleeping, having his ass kicked and suffering panic attacks, Tony Stark is suddenly James Bond, MacGyver and Schwarzenegger, able to, again, kind of teleport to the enemy stronghold and take down every, I imagine, highly trained hired goon single-handedly. Again, we're talking about a man who created an atomic super reactor in his chest in a cave in Afghanistan. If we apply common sense to a comic book film, you can snark it completely. I get the concern that he has no sleep, but the panic attacks are not constant, nor do they happen in battle, right? I think that's right anyway. As for teleporting, I seem to remember, again, hazy, so bear with me here if I'm wrong, that he works out where he is at night and then goes to a hardware store at day and then we cut back to him MacGyvering, which I think is an excellent adverb. And again, for me, I can suspend disbelief because at no point do I see Tony tripping over himself and going comatose. I do love the adverb, but again, Tony is already a billionaire, genius, playboy philanthropist. He can't be a commando as well. It almost makes his character unlikable or unrelatable. He's like bloody Lion-O from Thundercats, just the best at everything. Okay, this really got me. His suit runs out of energy. Wasn't it established over 3 previous films that his Iron Man suit runs off an almost limitless power supply in his chest? I'm with you on this one. It's a plot device, plain and simple. Experimental suit be damned, I'm sure it would run out of juice. the incredibly unfunny, awkward comedy, like the Stark fan in the van. Is that like a massive piss take of their own actual fan base? And Tony buying Pepper a giant rabbit, which, like, it just felt weird. Comedy is subjective, big man. I won't pretend I was chuckling whimsically at this for the rest of the film, cheek muscles tired from smiling, but I don't see it as a beef. He's famous, there's bound to be hero worship. I did chuckle. Again, a device that allowed an easy setup rather than a boring technical, I found the lair. The massive rabbit is obviously overcompensation as Tony descends further into his depressive funk. But are you saying the comedic moments throughout were unfunny, or are you just picking on those two? I think it had plenty of good lines and laugh out loud moments, and a lot of kiss kiss bang bang like snark from Robert Downey Jr. I agree, it's subjective, and there are plenty of funny lines in there. I particularly liked, take a look. How many are there? I don't know, I look too fast. Oh, and you're telling me that all 42 Iron Man suits with their combined might couldn't break out of the workshop until a crane lifted some rocks off? There was a freaking Hulkbuster suit in there. Now that is fanboyish. I loved the Hulkbuster suit. I wanted more of that. And when Tony's house got hit with the missile, wasn't the woman who was there also working with Killian? Why was she there if it was going to be attacked? You'd think that Guy Pearce might have sent her a text saying, oh, FYI, might want to give the Stark house a wide berth. It's kind of like Face Off, might want to stay away from the Stark house. It's going to be a little spoggy. Again, completely forgot, but wasn't there a throwaway line that she was reaching out to Stark herself? And when confronted, she made the old-timey, we can use him though, excuse. I can't remember. Yeah, probably something like that. I kind of lost interest in her too. Oh, and he does the TV interview. So, there's Pepper Potts, who he's having panic attacks over, because he can't protect her and she's the most important thing in the world to him. And then he draws a gigantic effing bullseye on her for the world's most dangerous super terrorist. Now, see, I have to stop you here. Mr. Invincible, playboy billionaire Tony Stark, in addition to suffering from PTSD and worrying about the wedge he's driven between him and her indoors, just saw a terrorist attack with no trace that puts his best mate in a coma. He's approached outside by numpties and press, and he loses it. It fits absolutely with what we know about him, and like anyone, he loses his temper. He, of course, does it in such a way that it draws Killian perfectly to spectacularly destroy his house, possessions, statues, status symbols as invincible Mr. Stark. I actually have no problem with Tony telling the Mandarin his address. It's not like his mansion is the Batcave. But the fact that he's then surprised that Pepper is a little upset and wants to leave for somewhere safer? Was he surprised? I can't remember, but if so, it sure is a little dumb. Also, Tony's whole drive throughout this movie has been to protect his loved ones, and then when Pepper Potts dies, plunging to a fiery death at the end, he's like, whoops, oh well, better go fight the bad guy. Well, snarkiness apart, movie history is filled with the loved one dying and the hero-heroine turning around to finish the fight with the additional emotional energy. So it's admittedly hokey, samey. What would have been more interesting could have been a complete emotional shutdown of Tony by seeing her fall to her death, and then Killian either coming close to even killing Tony. But I can't have a go at Shane Black because he turned around and went after the bad guy. Maybe Tony should have gave a bit more emotion? Oh, and another thing. You're telling me that his suit can be detonated simply by voice command or radio? Boy, I hope for his sake that no one hacks his system and blows him up anytime they want. The Enterprise can be blown up by 3 guys saying 00 destruct 0. I have long ago suspended disbelief that any system is fail-proof. But didn't he order Jarvis to do it? So it recognized his voice print, and that was all well established that Jarvis is kind of smart. And for me, that's enough. Oh sure, it could have been much tougher, but it's Iron Man. And another thing, he leaves his suit sitting outside a cafe, like a push bike. In a movie in which we established that pretty much any Muppet on Earth can jump in one of these things and pilot it. Jesus wept. Comedic value aside, oh, and the fact that Tony likes to flaunt it. Remember the donut in Iron Man 2? And apart from the Muppet being military trained, as in, Mr. Accountant who took his suit in the previous movie, where does someone just jump into it? Don't they take it off Rhodes and then use their own OS which aim themselves programmed so Savin can kidnap the president? One would think that for his own suits, only Jarvis or Tony can decide who can use one. Okay, maybe someone couldn't have jumped in and flown it, but still the Iron Man armor is sitting there in public and no one's messing with it? Come on, imagine if you left that in Reading unattended for 5 minutes. Another thing that bugged me was that Killian seemed invulnerable from one explosion or fiery attack to another. And then, when they finally suspected they had defeated him, Tony launches the Clean Slate program to destroy all remaining Iron Man armors, but with no real reassurance or knowledge that Killian was actually dead on this occasion. I thought that was kind of ridiculous. Why dispose of your weaponry when you're not even sure the battle is over with your current nemesis, or indeed without knowing what future threats are down the line? It's a ludicrous decision. That should have been a post-credit scene, Tony getting a call from Nick Fury. Stark, just Atari are back. They're invading New York. Avengers assemble. Ooh, really? Again, isn't it well established that the flaws of Extremis, which What's-Her-Face has been trying to fix, and using to their advantage with the terrorist attacks, is that it has a limited burn, so enough explosions and pain and use and the person goes bye-bye. So it makes sense that eventually all the characters using it would, without a Pepper Potts-like cure no doubt, be on a direct course to self-immolation. Yeah, but you just watch the guy breathe fire and regrow his arm, you might want to just double check first. And one final point I forgot to mention in my original 1,000 words, because this was a Facebook thread. When AIM get Rhodey out of the suit and Killian breathes fire at him before knocking him out, they just leave. Like proper Dr. Evil James Bond villains, they're like, well, he's unconscious, so I assume that he will remain that way forever and be of no further bother to us. That was one of those moments where I felt like there was a missing scene, or did I fall asleep? 1 minute Rhodey is captured and the next minute he's storming the place with RDJ. If I'd nodded off, you can fill in the blanks, that would be super. Either way, this was a great debate, sir. It's always a pleasure bantering about movies with you. We should really do it over a beer sometime. It did feel like a Kevin Smith wet dream. I think we just wrote half of Clerks 3. And there you have it. That was my Iron Man 3 experience 7 years ago. Goes to show that people can change, opinions can change. That's something I always hold very true to myself, is that nothing is set in stone. You know, opinions and ideas can change form. The more educated you are on something, it's okay to change your mind about things, you know? So I love the fact that I can now fully embrace Iron Man 3 as a movie that I actually genuinely like. Yes, it has its flaws, but on the whole, it's a good time. So guys, thank you for joining me for this review. Again, if you enjoyed this, like, share, subscribe. Please do subscribe, because we're closer to 500 subscribers than we are 0. And that's just nuts to me. I'm chuffed. I'm chuffed about that. So guys, yeah, thank you so much for supporting the channel. I'll see you in the next video. Keep displaying model behavior and don't be articulate. If you enjoyed this video, then I'd really appreciate it if you go ahead and hit the like button. And if you really enjoyed this video and you want to see more, then join the 6-1 Clicks by clicking the subscribe button and don't miss a single episode of Model Behavior.